The Supreme Court this week ended a term that will likely go down in history as one of the most consequential and most destructive ever. This hour, we'll look at all of the repercussions from some of its far-reaching rulings, including climate change, immigration, and of course, reproductive freedom. But we start by taking a step back to consider how our country is different now from when this court term began last fall, and where the conservative majority, supermajority, frankly, on this court is taking us. We all know our country has three branches of government, and each branch is supposed to restrain the others from exercising too much power through checks and balances. That's actually how all this is supposed to work. But this Supreme Court is acting as if it has absolutely no restraints, as if it is the sole decider, like with its decision in West Virginia versus EPA, which on Thursday limited the EPA's ability to do its job of regulating emissions that cause climate change. As Justice Elena Kagan wrote in her dissent, the court, quote, does not have a clue how to address climate change, but the court appoints itself instead of Congress or the expert agency as the decision maker on climate policy. I cannot think of many things more frightening, end quote. I also can't think of anything more frightening than a rogue Supreme Court whose rulings run roughshod over the role of Congress, the executive branch, prior court precedents, and, of course, most importantly, the fundamental rights of Americans. It's dangerous to our democracy. It's also arrogant, as Hillary Clinton said Thursday at the Aspen Ideas Festival about the Dobbs ruling overturning Roe v. Wade.
It's the most arrogant misreading of history and law that you could ever find. It is so narrow and baseless. I found that it was not only ignorant, but almost dismissive to the point of contempt for women's lives and women's choices. If you want the government making these decisions, if you want a state telling women, we're going to watch you, we're going to track you, we're not going to let you leave the state if you are pregnant. And how might we know that? We might know that through your social media accounts, through your Google searches. Think about the level of surveillance and intrusion that we are about to experience.
Joining us now are Dahlia Lithwick, a journalist from Slate and host of the Amicus podcast, also Mini Timuraju, president of NARAL Pro-Choice America. And Dahlia, you wrote that this court is showing, quote, a new kind of lawlessness that is frighteningly untethered from facts, science, and objectivity, and, quote, a redefinition of privacy that allows men to be at home everywhere they go and women to be at peace nowhere. I feel like you could drop the mic there, but lay all of that out for us, for the folks at home, in terms of just how extreme and rogue this Supreme Court is.
Do you have a couple of hours, Zerlina? I mean, it's a doctoral dissertation, but I think, you know, your sort of initial framing is correct. Any one of the 7, 8, 9, 12 major cases that the court decided in a maximalist way this year would have been enough in a normal term. In a normal term, we have one big abortion case, we have one big church state case, but to have every single hot button issue decided, as we just heard Secretary Clinton say, with this contempt for fact, contempt for science, contempt for precedent, and rooted in really cherry-picked bad history. I mean, the enormity of it is almost breathtaking. And maybe I'll say, you know, the other thing that is shocking is that the court, with a 25% approval rating, the lowest since polling has begun, hearing the American people shouting, standing outside, saying everything you're doing is hateful and hurtful, and pushing on the accelerator, going more, doing more, further, more contempt, that part of it is actually scary to me.
Yeah, that's a part of this that feels existential. It feels like when we, the people, the citizen, the person out in the streets, many protesting as a result of this decision or voting in upcoming midterms, you know, they want to make sure that their voices are heard. the polling is out on this, right? The culture war is won by the side of choice. But the protests, they're continuing a week after the Dobbs ruling, because despite the fact that public opinion supports abortion rights in this country, the Supreme Court said, we don't care. And folks are getting arrested in acts of civil disobedience. I mean, talk about the moment we're in terms of the role of activists and stakeholders in pushing our government officials to at least do what they can to respond to what the court just did.
Yeah, I was actually one of the people who got arrested yesterday. Yeah, a lot of reporters are asking, like, why? And I think Dahlia just laid it out, and you just, brought it home. I mean, look, we are the majority. We are not functioning as a representative democracy. We're just not. And I think we have serious questions about what our lawmakers can do about that. We're engaging in very robust discussions right now about what court reform could look like. But at the end of the day, we are dealing with a rigged system. We have gerrymandered districts. We have been unable to pass voting rights reform. There's a lot of challenges in the way of our functioning democracy. I would say at the end of the day, all of the decisions, I was just on a call with Reaper leaders, and we were talking about the continuum of all the decisions this week being really devastating for the issues we advocate for. Like, you're going to force pregnant people to force birth in this society while we are completely ruining the planet. Just talking about yesterday's decision. Everything that's coming out is so incredibly extreme. It hurts all of us as a community, and we have to collectively ally with other progressive groups that represent the majority of Americans and fight back. And, we pivoted to an electoral action immediately after the case, because that's where we see our sweet spot in the moment. And we really have to challenge the American people. I know it's a hard message to say vote when we have the House, the Senate, and the White House, but we also need to make sure folks understand who the bad actors are here, who the villains are in this scenario, and what is going on with this extremist court.
Oh, I've heard more and more Democrats actually adding on to the just vote. They're saying vote because we need 2 more senators. They've been a little bit more specific in their messaging post-Roe. Dahlia, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is this isn't the way the founders set this up. As much as this court and the conservatives on the court like to say that the founders are all knowing beings, they didn't even set this up this way. The Congress and the executive branch are failing their obligation to rein in the other branch of government, or at least be a check and a balance here. And the Supreme Court is behaving as if they don't think that check and balance thing is an issue for them. So what can be done in the short and long term to unrig the system, as many said?
Well, I might take issue with one tiny point, Zerlina, which is in some sense the system is working exactly as the framers wanted it to, which is to massively give disproportionate power to white rural states, and by way of the Electoral College, as we can talk about, or the malapportioned Senate, to make sure that voices are suppressed. And so in some ways, the system is working exactly as it was intended. And the fact that women and people of color are being clobbered suggests to me, at least, that this is actually not far from what the original dream was. That said, I think where you started is exactly the place we have to think about. We have a Supreme Court that just told the Biden administration, the executive branch, that it doesn't know how to regulate the clean air, and it then usurped the legislature's attempt to do it as well through regulation. So we have a court that has arrogated unto itself the power of all 3 branches and has made it very, very clear, it seems to me, that it's going to continue doing that. So now we really do need to see the other branches step up, as you say, and check. But going back to Minnie's point, we need to see people looking around and saying, unless we want to live under emperors, this juristocracy of unelected people, then really the only check left is to stop bickering about whether or not, we need 2 senators or a filibuster, and get out there and change the system.
Dahlia Lithwick and Minnie Tamaraju, it's always so great to have you, and it's such an important point. In some ways, this is how they intended for it to work. It's not what I think, but, I believe in the multiracial democracy. But again, they did not have me, you, and you in mind when they were coming up with the plan. Thank you again. Please stay safe. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.